All right. See if my broadcast, my stream got messed up on one side. Yeah, okay, it's back online. But it's interesting though, the timing of it. I mean, it's going to be all over the news and all over, well, especially MSNBC and those channels, right? Talking about how we setting things up for another round, just like they had before. But I'm curious. Let's take a look at some of the comments here. See what y'all think. Hey, Willie, thanks for the backup there. Let me get that fella's comments muted. All right, that's funny. It's got an icon that says there's people waiting, but I don't see anything in the list when I pull it up. No big deal. Hannah says she loves Kamala. Okay. Well, so this is not a real image. This is AI generated, as usual. The prompt was, can you make a Southern version of Kamala on a ranch? So there you go. Credit to Peter Ducey for coming up with that one.
How's it going, Cal?
Hey, Willie, what's going on, man?
Man, not a whole lot. Just kind of reading through a couple of the comments and stuff, and I thought it was interesting talking about like the Trump trial, well, sentencing being suspended and all that. I thought it was surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, I try to rationalize constantly the strategy that they're trying to take with some of this stuff. Initially was they're trying to get him to be sentenced and have to be serving time beforehand, or I just don't know. I don't know what the strategy is of postponing it at this point. They work so hard to kind of get that stuff in place and for him to be convicted.
Well, I think they just want the looming overhead of just continuously calling him a felon, because I'm sure that Kamala is probably going to bring it out during the debate that he's a felon and she's a prosecutor and he's like lawless chaos and she's joy and justice and everything else.
Yeah, where did we get joy? Who's that one fellow from LA on a previous live? Did he bring that, or was that something Kamala did? I can't remember now.
That's something that they've just been like pushing as like it's funny every time that they mention, like, they're talking about the Kamala Harris campaign, and Tim Walz too. Whenever he's speaking at like any type of rally or anything, they always talk about Kamala Harris is bringing joy back into the presidency, and all, like, it's one of those like continuous things, and you don't really notice it until like you get a bunch of edits together, and it's like, oh, there's so much joy in this campaign. There's so much joy at all the rallies, and like you keep seeing it over and over again.
Are you still there, Willie?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Somehow I lost you on the screen. Oh, it's my connection. It says I got a bad connection.
What's up, Cal? How you been, bro?
Hey, doing pretty good, man. No way, and Willie, I don't see the icons on the screen, but I think you guys are still both connected to it here.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'd like to address the specifics of the case, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, it's a very easy poll. Doesn't even require partisan searching. Independents were polled. And if Trump did the perp walk and was actually sentenced specifically to prison time, independent voters were at like 64% that they would not support the Democrats. I think this is a political move. Again, I might be wearing my tinfoil hat. And it's self-admitting, I might be wearing that. But the poll that I read, and I read pretty in depth to it, that independents, because the honest truth is, again, TikTok, this is my opinion. I think this election.
I just couldn't get the phone off. I wanted to, but I couldn't do it.
They are the 10% undecideds, which I know we're getting down to the wire, but they're still considered undecided. And the state of Pennsylvania, beyond all the, in my opinion, and this is only an opinion, are going to decide this election.
Independence, more or less. That's what they're trying to avoid offending them.
That was so much easier than funny.
Yeah, Patriot was kind of breaking up there a little bit, but from what I've seen, the biggest thing in the election, and he mentioned it too, is that Pennsylvania is probably going to.
Hey, Cal, I thought it was us. It's you that's making all the background noise.
I don't have a TV on. Is that what you're talking about?
That might be me. My bad.
Although, I did enjoy House of
Just real quick. You guys hear anything now? Are we good?
That's good. I don't hear anything.
Okay.
Willie, I apologize if I was breaking up. If I didn't bring clarity to that point, again, this is a little bit tinfoil hatty. However, I did read a poll that independent voters, specifically independent voters, which, let's be honest, is going to decide this election, were polled on if Trump was to get sentenced, not convicted, sentenced specifically, and more importantly, sentenced to jail time. It was in the 60s. Please forgive me. Normally I have my facts in front of me, but I think it was in the low 60s, 61, 63% said that their vote would go Republican if that was the case. Again, I give that with a grain of salt, but to you and I echoing the point, I think Pennsylvania is literally the decision or the deciding state in this election.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I heard your point. It was I don't know what's going on with like connections tonight. It seems kind of choppy on everyone's end because I'm having issues too. But no, I heard you mention it, and it makes sense. But it's also kind of interesting to see because you saw like when all of this was happening, it was, well, if Trump gets convicted, I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for a felon. I'm not voting for anyone that has a criminal record, this and that. And now it's, well, if he gets sentenced, I'm voting for him. So to see that change is kind of incredibly interesting.
I find it interesting as well because, I mean, the MAGA base is the MAGA base. Cal and I had a long discussion when he first started doing this regarding, in my opinion, again, I think rallies for either candidate are a ridiculous waste of money. I'm friends with the Trump family, not the president, but with the family. I think that all rallies, you're not waiting in 3 hours of lines for either candidate, and you're not making, the decision's already been made if you're doing that. So I think it's an incredible waste of money. However, I still will hold firm on this ground that the independents are going to make the decision for president this year.
Absolutely, and that's why RFK's endorsement carried such a heavy thing, like such a heavy like weight to it, and then they immediately tried to just downplay the RFK's crazy. The rest of the Kennedy family doesn't support him. Like, there's a 6% base that Kennedy carried, and if that 6% jumps over to Trump, that's a huge poll shift in especially swing states.
You and I are on the same page. I think he's to echo the Kennedy vote. I don't think. Again, I'm playing from the cheap seats, and I'm not delusional enough to think that I'm a poll expert. However, I think that, where you bring up a good point of 6%, I don't think that needs to be a necessity. I think if he can consider half of that the 3%, I still believe, without doing the rah-rah cheerleader and pom-poms, I still believe that 3% is enough to swing the votes in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, what's that, Kyle?
Go ahead, Willie.
No, I think it's super interesting too, because Kamala didn't see like a boost from the DNC after it, and you would think that she would be ahead with Trump, at least following general polls. A lot of she's in margin of error, within the margin of error, 1%, 2%, not even 2%. It's 1% either way. In a lot of the swing states. So I think it's interesting that didn't happen following the DNC and all of the media coverage that she's gotten.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that again, you and I we're in the cheap bleacher seats with this.
Absolutely.
But I think that I hate to say this. I think that the Democrats are following the same exact policy that beat Trump in 2020. And let me follow that a little bit. I think that we had jokes, and many of us had jokes, which was Biden's in his basement, campaigning for his basement. I think that in turn right now is the same argument in a different context, but the same argument with Kamala's not taking interviews, right? I know it sounds bizarre. Much like we'll go to policy, which is, let's be honest, it really doesn't exist. So that when I get on these lives, and I get a lot of them, there's no policy to debate because there's nothing on print that we can debate with them. However, I think that the student debt relief got put through the car wash and came out in $25,000 for new home buyers. Again, this is an opinion-based thing. I'm not saying, but I think that was the car wash. So the Supreme Court said no. Okay, so what else can we promise our base in order to swing votes?
Well, yeah, and that's the issue, is that it's just, let's just give money as opposed to fixing the problem. Because if you have a first-time home buyer and someone's like, if you're the seller, you can ask, are you a first-time home buyer? Or you can just kind of tell just by age, demographic, age, situation, financial situations, things like that. And the value of the home is now going up by $25,000. So you're just increasing the market. You're not fixing the actual problem behind it.
Well, and to that, I think that people have a delusion that the government produces something, which they don't. The government, we have a deficit for a reason, because the government is not a profitable endeavor in any way. So the 25,000, let's just say that, and there's nuances to it. I understand that. I'm not completely, I'm a stupid redneck, but I'm not that much of a stupid redneck. There are nuances to her words, because they're only words, they're only campaign promises. But the delusion is that that's still someone's money. The government produces nothing. They're every single year they're in the red. And so if you're promising another social program, because let's be honest, that's what it is, it's a different version of a social program, you're paying for that. So your hard work will pay for this if it becomes a reality.
I mean, it's the government. My thought process here might be crazy. It's the government taking your tax money, re-wrapping it, and then giving it back to you. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Means, and then you're going to tax the same individuals. I mean, I am not by any stretch of the imagination an economist. I'm a business owner, but how can you talk out of both ends of your mouth and then, and I know that sounds vitriol and it sounds like a right-wing talking point, but I'm just saying you're going to give people $25,000 of taxpayer money, and then you're going to also, in the same breath, charge unrealized capital gains. That's just bizarre to me.
So I have seen that the unrealized capital gains is like $100 million. It's like if anything over like $100 million or something like that. But it's just going to shrink down. It's no different than when income tax started. Income tax was supposed to be on like the 1% most wealthy people in the nation, and then it turned into, well, everyone's going to pay like 20% of the wages that they make. So,
Willie, oh, sorry, it keeps dropping my connection here. But that 100 million is going to start coming into play for folks because of pensions, retirement funds. Everybody pays into these massive funds or mutual funds, right? That are going to be subject to that, whether it's Fidelity or Charles Schwab or whatever it might be. And it's going to start having an effect on people. And then at what point do they start writing, all these little exceptions to different scenarios, right? It's going to be this terribly complex law. At the onset of it, it doesn't even make sense. It's not really encouraging any
I agree.
more good behavior, right?
I see the adjunct failure of trickle down economics. Although I am, I'm an old man, so Reaganomics is still in my periphery. I think something that a lot of us don't think about is again, I use this word a lot, delusion. So the delusion that because I'm privy to this information, for example, Apple, the largest cash reserve of any company in the world, not the United States, the world. Cash reserve means uninvested cash. The delusion that they're going to be able to tax that is just that. It's a delusion. They will move it offshore. They will put it through trusts, which means less cash in the system, which means a harder life for the middle class. They are not the only example. We can go on and use examples. If you tell these people you're going to increase, and this goes beyond the unrealized, but increase the corporate tax rate, what it does, they're going to avoid that. This is not, maybe Cal does, maybe Willie does. I apologize. My intelligence is much more blue collar. And I can tell you, I can assure you actually, that they will absolutely move it offshore. And if the fines are to be paid, it's going to be a dollar cost averaging mentality. Okay, so how much fines are we going to pay to keep it offshore versus the tax? The money will leave the United States. I think that it's a delusion to believe that you're going to collect that when already the 5% of the United States pays 64% of the taxes, or 68%, whatever it is. I know it's
a high percentage.
Right. I think that's debatable, but I think that if you have that in mind, which is the leftist eat the rich mentality, they're smarter than you. So if you threaten them with a higher tax rate, the money's just not going to be there. You're going to pay them. You're going to charge them taxes on the identical amount. So I land my plane, brother. I'm sorry.
I think you're
No, you're good,
right.
and you're. I think you're 100% right.
They're gonna take drastic action before the date of enforcement as well, right? So there's going to be this huge, ripple effect that just happens almost overnight, because the taxes or whatever it might be isn't going to happen year or whatever it might be, and then that'll be the year of reckoning where everything is either sold, restructured in a way to do exactly what you described. I mean, it's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, you see it, like, to put it into modern terms, you see it now with places like California, California's the big one. Massachusetts, places like that, like, people are like, it's too expensive to live here. New York, like, I'm leaving and moving to states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, like, because you eat the expense of having to of making the move to save the money down the line.
Willie, listen, I talk about this all the time. I'm in Florida, just so you know. I know Cal knows that, but I'm in Palm Beach. And I'm originally a Texas boy, but I live in Florida now. A good example, if we're going to do a macro level, and I know that people like, oh, don't do the macro level because there's more residents in California, but let's just use those two states as an example. Progressive policies clearly don't work. They're in a $54 billion deficit. We have a $23 billion surplus. They want, their schools are ranked at 26th, I believe. It might be 23. It depends on what you're looking at. Believe it or not, Florida is ranked number one. So when we look at progressive policies and tax implementation specifically, why is there a mass exodus larger than the gold rush leaving leftist states? Is it because of any other reason than progressive is it policy or is it tax policy? And I'd like to hear your opinions about that, both of you guys.
I'll just go first real quick, because I think at the end of the day, no matter how much social stuff you throw out there, it's people are going to vote with their pocketbook, right? And if you hit that hard enough, you're going to hurt their family. You go down the list of things that really matter to them, that's top priority, and that'll drive everything at that point.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think people are tired of the identity politics, the progressive agenda of having those politics pushed down their throat, and they're kind of those policies, and they're kind of over it. I think that's where we're starting to get to as a nation, in my opinion. There's a select few people, not select few, but there's a good amount of people that think that that's the way to go, and that's their opinion. But I think there's a large group of people that say, hey, enough's enough, leave my kid alone, stop trying to do this. And then you couple that with the tax policies and the sheer cost of living, because you can't touch a family house in California for less than four to and you mix it and you have this just recipe of I'm leaving.
I think the exodus that the liberals don't want to talk about, I think that's a metric that can't be overlooked. Especially since we're talking about California, let's use that as our benchmark. More people are moving from California than any other state, even beyond New York, which is, I actually didn't know that, but I just found that information out. People are moving away from California. So is it the progressive policies, which I appreciate that, Willie, about we're talking about, education? Are we talking about tax rate? Are we talking about the ability for businesses? From my understanding, and again, this is opinion, and I don't have enough information to give a factual facts on this. California is very non-small. Other than some articles, I have not verified that. I hate to talk about, non-facts. It's actually an annoyance of mine. But from my understanding, that's one of the other reasons that they're fleeing the state. Like I said, I am not. I live in Florida. I'm no proponent for Florida overall. But what's strange is, California, one of the progressive policies would be free breakfast and lunch to children, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, and we have that, right? DeSantis, the Darth Vader music Trump, right? That's what he is for all intents and purposes to the left, and we have that, and then they won't, and we have the number one rated schools in the country, but they won't accept that. Right, DeSantis, it's perception rather than reality.
Well, it's one of those things that you could do. Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis could make a team tomorrow, cure cancer, and everyone would go, "That's the most heinous thing that has ever happened on the planet." I can't imagine. I can't understand why they would do such a horrible thing, because that's the way that these people think.
Right. But I have a bad problem. While I appreciate that opinion, I don't like to group everybody into it. But in the same context, you're right. I think perception is going. Another thing about this vote, I think that, when we're on these things, which, Cal's been very, very careful the way he boosted his page. He's spent time, and I've listened to people on his page. He's very, very meticulous the way he does it. And I'm not boosting you up, bro, because I was one of your originals. I'm just being.
I appreciate that, and you were, because I've just been doing this for a month and a half, or I don't know.
I think that a lot of things are hard for us to do about perception. Like, let's just be honest. There's three of us up here. You have 15 or 18 people in the queue or in the chat. I think a lot of it has to do with education, and I'm going to go beyond that. Most of the American public is not going to spend the time or the effort to learn beyond what legacy media tells them. I don't want to go on the legacy media tangent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I don't think that, even if it's Fox News, I include Fox in that, by the way. I don't think that 80% of the public is going to do it. To me, and this sounds like I'm calling my fellow Americans stupid, and maybe I am. Maybe I am saying that. Are not going to spend any extra time. I like Harris. I like Trump. And that's where it starts and ends. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is most of what Americans are going to do, they're going to see the occasional article on Facebook. They're probably going to turn the news on when they go to work in the morning. Whatever they hear on the radio, and unless you go and seek out those other forms of media that kind of like trail off as like, okay, why is this happening? What's the reasoning behind it? What's going on behind the scenes? You're not going to get that. So I think it's kind of like, you bring up a good point, and I don't think Americans are stupid. I just think that they think that they don't need to go and seek out other forms of media because they're just like, well, these people have always told me what I need to know. So why would I not believe them anymore?
You know, there's a lot of things to it, right? Because I mean, there's a portion that out of interest, you know, but there's also, I think, a pretty huge group. And again, I'm doing this based on a hunch, a feeling, but I've talked to enough people that I feel like this, you know, may have some legs, that they're just trying to get by. They're going to work. They're, you know, watching over their kids. This is like not a priority for them, right? And so they just don't know, just because they're trying to live. And I feel like more and more people are falling into that bucket, right? And I can't remember what the account's name was, but a few lives ago, somebody, gosh, I can't remember what state she was in, but somebody came in and was basically describing how, you know, hey, I'm a dairy farmer, and this is where I'm at, and I can't figure out how to make things work anymore. Like, can somebody please tell me what it's going to take, you know, to stop all these inflated feed costs and help me actually, you know, be able to, you know, make a living here. So I think it's coming to their attention, but it's like, for so long, it hasn't been anything that was of importance or would make a difference to them in their day-to-day life. They were just trying to get by and, you know, make sure they make ends meet.
And isn't that really what we all want? I mean, you know, I hate to do the, you know, post 1940s baby boomer, you know, I don't want to do that, but in the same context, I mean, isn't that what we want? Isn't that we just want to be left alone to our own devices and provide for our families? I mean, and I don't think that more regulation encourages that, regardless of what regulation it is. Again, this is, you know, I'm so, well, Cal, you know me, I'm so left, you could, or so right, I'm sorry. I'm so right that you,
That's fine.
Yeah, you could might cut me off at the shoulder and I'd be okay. I mean, what I'm saying is that I think that the general public, I think, is either going to save or destroy this election. Although I think the 10% in the state of Pennsylvania is the key, I think the general public is, do they have that memory? Do they have that memory of cheaper gas prices? Do they have that memory? Because everything is short-lived, right? Everything. Right? Like, you know, the press cycle is short. You can see a convicted felon on Wednesday, and by Friday you forgot his name. So I think that's normality for all of us, you know. And again, this is just completely tinfoil hat crap, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where a lot of people are at. But hey, let me ask you guys, if can you give me some feedback? Can you like see the image on the screen anymore?
Yeah, we can see it, and I see a shadow version of you.
Yeah, you're just barely behind it.
I'm just getting like all kinds of weird. I don't know if my iPad I need to like wipe it out and reset it or what. But
you have opposition. Well, I don't know if it's opposition because the way you run your live, but his name says Matthew Dawson. I don't know if you see that.
Okay, I see that.
Not opposition, but I mean.
Yeah, I'm a Harris Biden supporter. Can I join the live? Yeah, Matthew.
Different opinions.
I'm gonna restart this live because, like, I can't. It's not showing me who's on. It doesn't even show me you guys being online. I mean, I'm talking to you here.
You know, it's fair
I was
enough.
going to say, I'm here.
Yeah. I'm gonna restart it here.
Follow you. I already follow Cal. Hey, how about this? I so don't care about this app. Don't follow me. I don't give a shit.
I'm still gonna follow you. So
I'm going to follow you. But Cal, if you come back up, I'll come back in if you have an opportunity or an open spot. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
yep, same here.
Y'all have a great
I think I'm just gonna change it over to my my phone, but I'm gonna stop this and restart it in just a few minutes here because I gotta figure out
fair
what's
enough.
going on with my settings here.
Okay.
I'll be right back, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.